The Amazon rainforest is one of the most incredible places on Earth. It's also one of the most dangerous. They call it the lungs of the world for a reason. The air is thick, humid, and heavy with the smell of wet earth and decaying leaves. Every breath you take feels like you're drinking in the very essence of life itself, but with that life comes constant peril. It's a world built on a simple rule: survive. You have to be alert every single second. The jungle doesn't forgive mistakes. One wrong step could be your last. It's a beautiful, brutal paradise where nature is firmly in charge. My mission this time was different. I was guiding a small team, led by a wildlife photographer named Daniel Carter. Daniel was a top bloke, brave and determined. He wanted to capture images of the Amazon's rarest creatures. His team included a biologist, Dr. Aris Thorne, and a local guide, Matteo. We were equipped with the best gear, but in a place like this, technology only gets you so far. Your greatest tool is your instinct. You have to learn to read the signs, to listen to the whispers of the jungle. It's a language all its own, spoken in the rustle of leaves, the call of a bird, and the sudden, unnerving silence. Our journey began on the murky waters of a remote tributary, far from any sign of modern civilization. The deeper we went, the more the jungle closed in around us. Giant kapok trees formed a cathedral-like canopy high above, blocking out the sun and casting the forest floor in a permanent twilight. The sounds were overwhelming. A chorus of howler monkeys would erupt in the distance, their roars echoing for miles. Strange insects buzzed past our ears, and brightly colored frogs watched us from their leafy perches. Every plant, every creature has developed its own unique way to survive here, from deadly poisons to brilliant camouflage. This environment is a true test of human endurance. The heat is relentless and the humidity saps your strength. You're constantly battling against biting insects, thorny vines that tear at your clothes, and the ever-present risk of disease. But the psychological challenge is just as great. The sheer scale of the jungle can make you feel small and insignificant. It's an easy place to get lost, to feel overwhelmed by the raw, untamed power of nature. You have to stay focused, stay positive, and rely on your training and your team. In the Amazon, you are never truly alone, but you're always a guest in a world that can turn on you in an instant. As we navigated the winding waterways, our guide Matteo began to share local stories. He spoke in a hushed tone, his eyes scanning the riverbanks. The villagers in the last outpost we had visited had warned him. They spoke of a creature they called the Yaku Mama, the mother of the water. According to their legends, it was a giant anaconda, a snake of impossible size. They said it was longer than a bus and as thick as an oil drum. They told tales of canoes being dragged underwater and livestock vanishing from the water's edge. The stories were filled with a deep, primal fear that was passed down through generations. Initially, Daniel and Aris were skeptical. As a scientist, Aris sought logical explanations. He reminded us that anacondas are indeed massive snakes, the heaviest in the world. A green anaconda can grow over 20 feet long and weigh more than 500 pounds. They are powerful ambush predators, using their immense constricting force to suffocate their prey. But a snake the size the villagers described? That sounded more like a myth than a reality. Daniel, focused on his photographic mission, listened politely, but was more interested in finding a jaguar or a rare harpy eagle. The legend was a fascinating piece of local folklore, but not a serious threat. I've learned to never dismiss local knowledge. These people live in harmony with the jungle. They understand its rhythms and its secrets in a way an outsider never can. Their stories, even if they sound like myths, are often born from real experiences. A legend of a giant snake might be an exaggeration, but it could point to a particularly large and aggressive individual in the area. I advise the team to be extra cautious around the water. Anacondas are masters of camouflage. They can lie submerged for hours with only their eyes and nostrils above the surface, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Despite my warnings, the team's focus remained on their primary objectives. Aris set up camera traps near animal trails, hoping to capture footage of elusive mammals. Daniel spent hours perched in blinds, his long lens ready for any sign of rare bird life. The talk of the giant anaconda faded into the background, becoming just another part of the jungle's mysterious soundtrack. But in the back of my mind, the villagers' words lingered. Fear is a powerful survival tool. Their fear was real, and I had a gut feeling that we shouldn't ignore it. The river held its secrets close, and I suspected we were about to learn one of them the hard way. Our first few days were productive, but uneventful in any monstrous way. Daniel captured some stunning shots of macaws and capuchin monkeys. Aris collected data on several species of poison dart frogs. But as we pushed deeper into the territory the villagers had warned us about, the atmosphere began to change. The jungle grew quieter, more watchful. One afternoon, while scouting a muddy bank for a place to make camp, Matteo called us over. His voice was low, laced with a tension I hadn't heard before. There, pressed into the soft mud, was a track unlike anything I had ever seen. It wasn't a footprint, it was a trail. The track was a wide, smooth impression, a serpentine path nearly 3 feet across. It was as if something impossibly heavy and long had slithered out of the water and into the dense undergrowth. Aris knelt, his scientific curiosity overriding his skepticism. He measured the width, noting the displaced earth. He explained that a normal, large anaconda might leave a trail a foot wide at most. This was something else entirely. The sheer scale was mind-boggling. To leave a track this size, the snake would have to be enormous, far larger than any officially recorded specimen. Daniel's camera clicked furiously, documenting the evidence. The myth was starting to feel very real. That night, an unsettling mood fell over our camp. The usual chorus of nocturnal animals was strangely silent. The air was still and heavy. We sat around the fire, our conversation muted. The image of that track was burned into our minds. We reviewed Daniel's photos on his laptop, zooming in, trying to comprehend the sheer size of the creature that made it. Matteo was visibly on edge, clutching a small wooden charm and murmuring prayers. He told us this was a bad omen, a sign that the Yakumama was aware of our presence and did not welcome it. The jungle was no longer just a backdrop for our expedition. It was a hunting ground, and we were beginning to feel like prey. The suspense was a physical thing, a weight pressing down on us. Every snap of a twig, every ripple in the nearby water made us jump. I did a thorough check of our camp's perimeter, ensuring the fire was built high to deter any curious predators. Sleep came in short, fitful bursts. Later that night I was awoken by a low, rumbling sound. It wasn't thunder, it was a deep, guttural hiss that seemed to vibrate through the ground. Then, from the darkness of the river, I saw it. 2 eyes, glinting in the moonlight, surfaced slowly. They were far apart, and they were watching us. The giant anaconda was real, and it was here. The sight of those eyes froze us in place. They were cold, ancient, and intelligent. They belonged to a predator at the absolute top of its food chain. The head that emerged from the black water was massive, bigger than my torso. It rose silently, a dark, glistening monolith of muscle and scale. The snake didn't rush. It observed us with an unnerving stillness, its forked tongue flicking out to taste the air, gathering information. Daniel, snapping out of his shock, raised his camera, but his hands were shaking. The sheer presence of the creature was overwhelming. It was a living dinosaur, a relic from a forgotten age. The attack came without warning. It was an explosion of speed and power. In one fluid motion, the colossal serpent lunged from the river. It didn't aim for me or Daniel near the fire. It targeted Aris, who was standing closest to the water's edge, mesmerized by the spectacle. The snake's head shot forward like a battering ram, and its jaws, capable of unhinging to swallow prey larger than its own head, clamped down on Aris's leg. He screamed, a sound of pure terror and pain that was swallowed by the jungle. The anaconda immediately began to coil, its immense body surging from the river like a thick, unstoppable cable. Instinct took over. We had to act fast or Aris would be dragged into the water and crushed. I grabbed my machete, the one tool you never go without in the Amazon, and lunged forward. Daniel and Matteo grabbed Aris, trying to pull him back, fighting against the snake's incredible strength. The Anaconda's muscles were like steel bands, tightening with immense pressure. I brought the machete down hard on the snake's body, just behind its head. The blade bounced off the thick scales as if I'd hit solid rock. It was like trying to chop through a truck tire. The snake barely registered the blow. Our struggle was desperate. The Anaconda was pulling Aris relentlessly towards the river. Its goal was to get him into the water, where it would have the advantage. I knew a direct assault on its body was useless. Its only vulnerable points were its eyes and head. Shouting for Daniel and Matteo to pull with all their might, I repositioned and aimed for its head again. This time, I struck near its eye. The blow wasn't fatal, but it caused a moment of shock and pain. The snake hissed, a sound like a high-pressure hose rupturing, and for a split second, its grip loosened. It was the chance we needed. We pulled Aris free, scrambling backward away from the furious beast as it recoiled into the dark water. We dragged Aris back to the relative safety of the fire, his leg bleeding badly from the puncture wounds. The attack was over as quickly as it had begun, but the terror lingered in the air. We were all breathing heavily, adrenaline coursing through our veins. Matteo worked quickly, using his knowledge of jungle plants to create a poultice to clean the wound and stop the bleeding, while I applied a pressure bandage. Aris was in shock, his face pale, but he was alive. We had been incredibly lucky. If the snake had gotten a proper coil around him or dragged him into the river, the outcome would have been grim. The rest of the night was a sleepless vigil. We huddled close to the fire, our backs to each other, scanning the impenetrable darkness that surrounded our small circle of light. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound was the snake returning. Fear is a corrosive thing. It eats away at your resolve and clouds your judgment. We had come face to face with a creature of legend, and we had barely survived. The logical thing to do was to pack up at first light, get in the boat and leave. We had pushed our luck too far. The jungle was sending us a clear message: turn back. But as the first light of dawn began to filter through the canopy, a different idea began to form. Daniel, the photographer, was torn. He was terrified, but he was also a professional. He had been just feet away from a creature that science didn't officially recognize. It was the discovery of a lifetime. He checked his camera, his heart sinking as he saw the images were blurred and chaotic, captured in the panic of the moment. He had proof, but it was shaky. He argued that we couldn't just leave. We had to go back. We had to get clear footage, undeniable evidence of the snake's existence. It was a crazy, dangerous idea. Aris, despite his injury, agreed. The biologist in him was captivated. This was a potential new species, or at least a specimen that shattered all known records for its size. He believed documenting it was our scientific duty. Matteo was strongly against it, believing we were tempting fate and disrespecting the spirits of the jungle. It fell to me to make the final call. Leaving was the safe option. But survival isn't just about running away. Sometimes it's about facing the danger head-on with a plan. We had survived one encounter. We now knew what we were up against. I made the decision. We would track the beast. With our decision made, a new kind of tension filled the air. This was no longer just an expedition. It was a hunt. We weren't trying to harm the snake, but to find its lair and document it properly. We left Aris, who could barely walk, at the camp with Matteo and a radio, and set off at sunrise. We followed the massive trail the Anaconda had left when it retreated. The path of destruction was easy to follow. It had carved a trough through the undergrowth, leading away from the river and deeper into the forest. The trail led us towards a low-lying area, a backwater swamp thick with mangroves and stagnant black water. The air in the swamp was foul, thick with the smell of decay. The water was still and ominous, covered in a green film of algae. This was perfect anaconda territory. They love these slow-moving, choked waterways where they can hide and ambush prey. We moved with extreme caution, our senses on high alert. Daniel had his camera ready on a monopod, his lens scanning the murky water. I had my machete in hand, my eyes searching for any sign of movement. The silence was absolute. It was the kind of quiet that precedes an attack. We knew the snake was here. We could feel it. We were in its home, its killing ground. We found the lair by a cluster of gnarled, half-submerged tree roots. It was a dark, cavernous opening in the muddy bank, partially hidden by hanging vines. The water around it was littered with the bones of animals, caiman, capybara, and even a young jaguar. This was the heart of its territory. As Daniel carefully positioned himself to get a shot of the entrance, the water in front of us began to boil. The anaconda exploded from beneath the surface, not with a slow rise, but with the full force of a torpedo. It lunged straight for our small, makeshift raft, its mouth agape, revealing rows of backward-curving teeth. There was no time to think, only to react. The raft buckled as the snake's massive head slammed into it, trying to capsize us. We scrambled backward, falling into the shallow, muddy water. The snake was on us, its immense body creating waves in the small swamp. This was not a territorial warning. This was a full-blown assault. "Run!" I yelled. We turned and fled, scrambling through the thick mud and tangled roots, not daring to look back. The sound of the colossal beast crashing through the swamp behind us was terrifying. It was faster than we could have imagined, a relentless engine of destruction. We ran for our lives, the legends snapping at our heels. We burst out of the swamp and didn't stop running until we reached the relative safety of the main riverbank near our camp. We were covered in mud, breathless, and shaking with fear. We had escaped, but only just. The anaconda, seemingly reluctant to leave its core territory, did not follow us out of the swamp. We stumbled back into camp, where Mateo and Aris rushed to help us. The hunt was over. We had pushed our luck to its absolute limit, and the jungle had pushed back with terrifying force. There would be no more attempts to get footage. Our priority now was simple: get out. We packed our gear with frantic urgency, constantly glancing back towards the jungle. Every shadow, every sound seemed to be the monster returning to finish the job. As we loaded the boat, Daniel checked his camera. In the chaos of the second attack, he had managed to get a few seconds of clear video. It showed the snake's massive head lunging from the water. It was undeniable proof that the footage, combined with the track measurements and Aris's wound, told a story that the scientific community would have to take seriously. We had found the Yakumama. We had survived it, and we had the evidence. As our boat sped away down the river, leaving that dark corner of the Amazon behind, a profound silence fell over us. We were forever changed by the experience. We had ventured into the realm of myth and found it to be terrifyingly real. The Amazon holds secrets that modern science has yet to uncover. Ancient life forms that have remained hidden in its deepest, most inaccessible corners. The giant anaconda is one of those secrets. For the local tribes, it is a god, a spirit of the water to be feared and respected. For science, it is a cryptid, a creature whose existence is now backed by compelling evidence. The legend of the giant anaconda lives on, not just in the whispered stories of the Amazonian people, but in our footage and in our memories. It is a powerful reminder that there are still monsters in the world, not of fantasy, but of flesh and blood. It is a symbol of the wild, untamable spirit of the Amazon. Somewhere in those murky, forgotten waters, the great snake still reigns, a silent, patient king in its green kingdom. And it waits. You have to respect that. In the wild, it's all about survival of the fittest, and that creature is the very definition of a survivor.